Greetings! Welcome to the Devlog for hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades. We're going to start off as always with a quick sound check. Make sure speakers aren't up too high. Wonderful. So what have we got for you this week? Well, we've got a bunch of exciting stuff for you. And we're going to start off small and work our way up. Well, the first thing we have is, that's right, a rebuilt M79. We've got a new model here. I love the original. It was one of the first things that went into H3 before it was even a full game, but there were always a few little problems with it. It was textured in a more legacy way. The wood grip wasn't quite how I liked. So we've got this new beautiful model from Ben Kalla, who is responsible for a whole bunch of the firearms in the game, and along with it, a sweet new set of grenades. Basically, I jumped over to working on this because explosion damage has finally been fixed in the game, and I'll get into that in a moment. So let's take a look at our new device. We still have this flip-up sight for long-range engagement. Let's see. Let's start with this is our standard 40mm grenade. This is our M381. Which I'm going to go ahead and spawn lock here. Crack this open. You'll notice this is a lot less floppy than the last version of it. Let's see, I'm going to try to aim back there. So this is just your standard HE grenade. Oh, hit the ceiling there. Beautiful. Let's quickly go over some loading tips for this, because some folks do tend to struggle a little bit with the foregrips on break action weapons because they're physics active, they're a little glitchy. Just remember, if you want to be firing two-handed, so I'm grabbing the foregrip here and I fire. If I want to hold on to the foregrip while dumping the cartridge, the easiest way to do that is turn the firearm upside down and it pops right open. That way I can take my hand off of the primary grip and then just turn it back around, and that'll shut it. Beautiful. So what other grenades do we have to play with? We've got, let's see here, this is the M397 Airburst grenade. Let me spawn lock this. The way these work is basically the grenade, from the grenade sort of initial hit point, the projectile pops up a couple meters and then explodes, which is a great way of hitting things behind cover. Obviously, we're in an indoor circumstance, so I'm going to fire this at the ground, and you'll see it will explode up against the ceiling. Boom! Really nice and effective, both in the outdoors and in, say, warehouse-type environments where stuff is behind cover. We then have the, let's see here, M576, which this is our buckshot grenade, basically. This just has like 20-some buckshot projectiles in it. We're just going to fire it against the target so we can see it spread. Boom! Nice and punchy. So this allows you, if you've got one of these, to both use this as a sort of like explosive ordnance weapon, but also in a pinch, just as a big old shotgun shot. Boom. And then the last of our realistic grenades for now, because I don't have them all implemented, is our practice grenade. What is this? That's an M781, which just does, you know, a paltry amount of damage and just sort of bloops out. Not terribly useful, except for checking range and seeing if you can just direct hit specific targets at range. Pop. But I couldn't stop there, so we've got a couple fictional ones. I've got some more ones planned later on, but these are the three that have been implemented so far. The first one is the M214 Steelbreaker, and what this basically is it's an armor-penetrating sort of sabot round. Obviously, these are fictional, but they're fun. So this is just a very high-velocity sort of penetrator round. I put this in mainly for things like take and hold, just so that there are more interesting things that can spawn with this platform. Boom! Sort of imagine it like the turbo penetrator round in the 2019 Detective Special. Boom. Does a lot of damage. Another one here, which is basically designed for incredibly close quarters battle. This is the X477 Corner Frag. This one's a little dangerous to use, but it's specifically built for that. It's called the Corner Frag because it's literally for those situations where you've got enemies up real close and you want to set off a grenade at point blank pretty much and not kill yourself. So this has a reduced explosive radius of only about 2 meters and is literally designed to, say, be peeked around the corner and fired. It airbursts exactly 4 meters after firing. So it explodes right in front of us and is the perfect sort of high damage way to use this platform far closer than you should. Just be aware that you probably will get tagged by some of the shrapnel if you can draw line of sight to it, hence the term corner frag. And then lastly, we have the X666 Baphomet, which is basically Super Dragon's Breath buckshot with a super wide spread. So let's pop this out. Boom. You can see that's got way more spread than our buckshot shell, so it is meant to be used close. These projectiles do damage, and I've actually modified the other 12 gauge shells that were more on the novelty side to still do some damage and be useful up close. Just so that you don't get completely trolled running across one of them in Take and Hold. You just have to adjust for them. Love it. Let's fire that point blank so we can see it. Delightful. And there you have it. There's our new M79. So now that we have taken a look at that, oh goodness, right onto the ground, let's jump over to our rebuilt, well, reactivated Take and Hold scene. So, I am over in the Take and Hold scene now, newly reactivated with all of our fancy sound reverb and such. But along with that has come a number of changes, which I've been working on the past week, both that are specific to this mode, but also support the sort of other modes that I need to sort of rebuild and refactor to get Update 52 out the door. The big one from a sort of back-end standpoint, some of you may have seen me sort of complaining about it on my Twitter, is that I filled in metadata for all 750 or so spawnable objects in the game. Things like what their size is, what objects they're related to, what era they're from, etc. And what this does is it allows me to build procedurally loot tables automatically from the item database. So it's no longer going to be the case where, say, I add, another 10 firearms to the game and people have to be like, are they in Take and Hold yet? They will automatically be in Take and Hold and any of the other relevant modes as things go forward, because those modes will now populate their items parametrically, which is really exciting, and will save me a ton of time so that I can work on far more fun things. So if we come over here and look at the board, we've got some new loot progression options instead of sort of standard, generous, and hard mode at the moment. And this is primarily just to test the system. I'm eventually going to give you way more granular control of this. Standard is pretty much all the objects. World War II is pretty much everything from sort of turn of the century up to 1944. And Desperado is just cowboy and turn of the century guns. It's very difficult because it's things like single action revolvers and lever actions and breech loaders. In a big way, I want folks to test this so that I can see and sort of gauge difficulty wise how far folks can actually get into this game using just the Desperado weapons and what they ended up using to do so. On top of that, I'm excited to announce we have some new music. It's still work in progress. It's by a composer friend of mine, Joe, who has been working away on it and actually some music for Meats, and we're sort of debuting it in this alpha. It's not done, but it's now to the point where it actually plugs correctly into the game logic and sequencer and actually has a whole bunch of sort of dynamic things that can change about it as you play, that will be sort of growing and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't, but you'll be able to try it out now. In addition to that, you should know once you've made it past, I believe, 4 or 5 hold points, there is now actually actually a chance for some of the big guns to spawn. So things like rocket launchers and the minigun and things like that. So there's now a whole new tier of equipment that can appear in this mode, along with throwables. And attachments aren't fully spawning yet because I still need to tweak those tables, but those will be back in soon as well. So let's go ahead and start here. Got ourselves a melee weapon, very important for those stealthy takedowns. There are a number of other subtle changes as well that you'll notice as you're playing. Ooh, CQB-870. Beautiful. Bots that are not in your specific hold and supply points are no longer static in the world. They're actually transiting from one place to another, so you gotta watch out. Let's see here. I'm gonna go to the supply point first, as I almost fall over.
That?
Let's have a safety.
What was that?
Yes, it did.
Take them down!
Ah!
Flank left.
Beautiful. Let's see what else we got. Up. I always place those up in my head. Ooh, perfect. M79 with an airburst. Let's try this out. Remember, explosive damage is now dangerous. You don't want to fire these point blank, or they will just wreck you. Let's go to our hold point now. You know what? Let me go ahead and reload this. Can't remember if I even did. Either way. Beautiful. Got airburst grenades. Be real careful about engagement.
Need to reload.
These have a pretty wide radius on them. Oh, there is a simulated overpressure effect with these. When they're fired into more contained spaces, they do significantly more damage. So be careful. Here we go. Before I jump into this, you should be aware I am in the process of tweaking how the actual attacks occur, how many waves there are, what a wave is. It's not perfectly balanced yet, but what's in here now should be a way more sensible progression than what it was before. That's less spammy and actually has a sort of smoother increasing difficulty curve over time, and the hold points get longer the more of them you do. So it becomes a little more about endurance. Let's do this. It's almost unfair having the M79 for this. I really lucked out. Swap our hands on this. You'll notice a little more break time in between waves. Love it. That is designed to actually give you enough time to reload some of the more cumbersome firearms. And there we go. So So that's the first one. It's always 3 waves. As I said, as the difficulty goes up, the types of waves that show up get more intense. Things like chargers, bruisers, armored bots and such, and the number of waves you have to do goes up. So instead of just spamming more bots at the same time at you, it makes the experience longer and makes the number of directions they can come from and what shows up harder. So that should hopefully be more satisfying for those of you who play. And as I said, it's still just sort of iterating and testing towards finding a good rhythm. So I'm going to jump out of VR quickly and sort of talk about what is coming next, after which I'm going to throw some footage back here on the end, just showing me playing more of this mode.
Yo! So I hope you all enjoyed seeing that and are as excited to play Taken Hold on the alpha as I have been enjoying playing it this past week or so, getting it all functioning again, getting to play with the widest set of firearms in the game yet. I actually managed to defeat a hold point with just a Remington rolling block 50 black powder single shot pistol the other day, which I was quite proud of. It's really hard. The Desperado mode can very much be cruel in terms of what equipment it gives you when you've got a rolling block, a volcanic pistol, and a single action, which are so hard to reload quickly. But yeah, so in terms of what's gotten done this week, I know it looks like I've mainly been focusing on Taken Hold, but a majority of the effort has actually been on shared back-end systems that Taken Hold, Rotwieners, and Meat Grinder, and Worst World all rely on because of the way that they spawn equipment, the way they bind and load assets together. And so a bunch of the work that I've done here is to, when I sort of bring Meat Grinder back into the alpha, both tuning its sound, tuning away a bunch of behavior in it works, and probably doing a little bit of equipment spawn changing to it just to sort of freshen up that mode and sort of get a little more mileage out of it. So beyond that, yeah, I'm just I continue to be on the course that I talked about last week, which is just getting those big pillar modes that have a lot more sort of manual futzy work back up and running, making sure the sound is mixed correctly, and just tuning little things gameplay wise, some long time stuff that needed a little bit of improvement, getting around to that finally, because if I'm tearing everything open, I might as well tune progressively as I go. But I continue to be fairly confident that I should be able to get update 52 out either the last Friday of April or the 1st of May. So that has me incredibly excited, because I want to get back to putting more new guns in the game. I've missed it. So, well, I hope you all enjoy this. Please, those of you who are playing on the alpha, please test the hell out of the Taken Hold mode. If something completely glitches out on you, by the way, like a hold mode won't end, or something else really strange, sound disappears, please ping me on the subreddit immediately. Just PM me directly your output_log.txt and exactly what was happening when the error happened. I've actually completely subbed out the code for both equipment spawning and spawning bots in waves in the sequences, so there might be a couple pernicious bugs. I've already given it probably about 10 hours of testing playtime already, but that's a drop in the bucket for any sort of procedural game-based system. There might still be some corner cases. I might have a misdragged reference somewhere with a piece of equipment. So if you run into anything, please just directly, don't even post it on a message or on the Steam forum. Just directly PM me on Reddit, and it'll get to me fastest, because code changes, if it's just a code change alone, I can push very small hot fixes and get that fixed really quickly, so it's not interrupting anyone's experience. So with that, I'm going to stop this on-camera part, and I'm just going to leave you with a little more footage of me just playing the mode for those of you who don't have the game or don't have a VR system and just enjoy watching it, and for those of you who are still not on the alpha branch and just want to see how different it all looks and feels. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Peace.
gear. This way.
That's odd.
I love the vector so much. Let's see what we got here. Let's go ahead and heal up. Ooh, yeah, there we go. Get ourselves a nice sidearm. I always like using the lower capacity of my firearms first in the long engagements. Only switching out when I need to. Helps you practice your reloading. Let's go this way.
I'm sure someone's around here.
Is that all of them? Let's do this. Remember, having your second hand near your first one with any handgun stabilizes it. That's why it's good to have high capacity backup ready. There we go. Close that in. Oh, good. Let's get some more loot. Nope, it's not a dead end. Let's see what we got. Oh, just another revolver. It is fun to use too. Just gotta make sure not to mess the speed loaders up. Perfect. Let's go ahead and grab this. Oh, you know what? That wasn't my current
What was
supply
that?
point. That was the one that I skipped. Awesome. Let's see if we can fling ourselves up here with one
You
hand.
hot.
Flubbed it. One of these days I'll get better at this. Hopes to hit your target. Let's see what we got here. I'll pass. Equipment doesn't necessarily get better, it just has the chance to get better as time goes on. Oh, I love revolvers so much.
At least you're
ahead and empty these. Practice our double reload. Beautiful. Let's do this. From here. Are empty. Next supply point.
Really need to get. Really need to get an oil change.
Do we need it? No. Do we want it? Yes. They must have been transiting.
Really need to get an oil change. Really need to get that oil change. Did you hear that? That's odd. Really need to get it. Did you hear that? That.
Full power cartridges. Great things.
Really need to get what's that?
Empty.
Oil change. What's that? What's that there?
Well, that's about it for now. And, yeah, folks enjoy playing the mode.